Here's a creative scene based on your concept. The sun hung low on the horizon, its amber glow shimmering off the glossy surface of a giant water balloon that loomed over the vast, open field. The balloon, a behemoth of liquid encapsulated in a taut, transparent membrane, trembled as if alive, rippling slightly with the breeze. Around it, an air of suspense thickened, accompanied by the distant, haunting strains of the Seek Chase theme from The Doors' Floor 2 soundtrack, as though the very melody were fueling the tension. A crowd had gathered nearby, their faces a mixture of awe and unease. Children whispered excitedly while adults watched with furrowed brows, sensing an underlying danger in the sheer size of the colossal sphere. At the center of the scene stood Sam and Riley, two teenagers notorious for their knack for turning ordinary ideas into chaos. Sam, a wiry boy with a mischievous grin, held a remote control, its antenna bent at an odd angle. Riley, taller and perpetually skeptical, adjusted the straps of her backpack, filled to the brim with emergency supplies. "This is insane," Riley muttered, her voice barely audible over the ominous music blasting from a nearby speaker. "You really think this is going to work?" "It's not about working," Sam replied, his eyes glued to the balloon. "It's about making history." Before Riley could retort, the balloon quivered violently, casting a massive shadow over the field. A low hum resonated from within, as though the water itself had become sentient, responding to the eerie soundtrack. "Time to run," Sam whispered, his grin widening as he pressed a button on the remote. The balloon shuddered, then lurched forward with surprising speed. Water sloshed within, its volume undulating like a tidal wave trapped in glass. The crowd screamed in unison, scattering in all directions as the monstrous sphere began its pursuit. The music swelled, its tempo matching the frantic pounding of footsteps. The Seek Chase theme seemed to meld with the chaos, its eerie piano notes weaving through the air like a phantom conductor orchestrating the scene. Sam and Riley sprinted toward the forest, the balloon gaining on them with every bounce. Its movements were unpredictable, each impact sending shockwaves through the ground and spraying mist into the air. "I told you this was a bad idea," Riley yelled, her voice barely carrying over the cacophony. "And I told you to trust me," Sam shot back, dodging a low-hanging branch. Behind them, the balloon smashed into a row of picnic tables, reducing them to splinters in an instant. The crowd, now at a safer distance, watched in a mix of horror and exhilaration. The balloon wasn't just chasing, it was hunting. The forest was a labyrinth of trees and underbrush, each step a gamble against twisted roots and slippery moss. The music followed them, its relentless rhythm driving them deeper into the shadows. Sam glanced over his shoulder, his heart sinking as he saw the balloon forcing its way through the trees, flattening everything in its path. "It's too big," Riley shouted. "It'll get stuck." But it didn't. The balloon seemed to adapt, its shape compressing and stretching to squeeze through narrow gaps. "Okay, that's new," Sam admitted, his bravado faltering. Ahead, the terrain sloped downward into a rocky ravine. A narrow bridge spanned the gap, its planks weathered and unstable. Sam hesitated, but Riley grabbed his arm. "No time to think," she said, dragging him forward. The bridge creaked ominously under their weight, each step a test of its integrity. Behind them, the balloon paused at the edge of the ravine, its surface shimmering like liquid fire in the fading sunlight. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate, its movements stilled by some unseen force. Then, with a deafening roar, it leaped. The bridge buckled under the impact, sending splinters and debris cascading into the abyss below. Sam and Riley barely made it to the other side, tumbling onto the ground as the bridge collapsed behind them. "Did it fall?" Riley asked, gasping for breath. A wet, sloshing sound answered her. The balloon hadn't fallen. It clung to the ravine's edge, its surface rippling with effort as it pulled itself up. "This thing is unstoppable," Sam muttered, his voice tinged with awe. The music shifted, its haunting melody replaced by a frantic crescendo. The balloon surged forward, its movements now more aggressive, as if enraged by their escape. They reached an open field dotted with abandoned machinery, rusted tractors, broken-down trucks, and stacks of wooden pallets. Sam's eyes lit up as he spotted a large, industrial pump lying amidst the debris. "Buy me some time," he shouted, rushing toward the pump. "Buy you time? With what?" Riley retorted, but Sam was already rummaging through the equipment. The balloon emerged from the forest, its massive form casting long shadows across the field. Riley grabbed a metal pipe and swung it with all her strength, striking the balloon's surface. The impact sent a wave rippling through the water, but the balloon remained unscathed. "Great plan, Sam," she yelled, dodging as the balloon lunged toward her. "Almost there," Sam replied, his hands a blur as he connected hoses and adjusted valves. The balloon loomed over Riley, its surface distorting as if preparing to engulf her. She stumbled backward, her pipe slipping from her grasp. "Now!" Sam shouted. A deafening hiss filled the air as the pump roared to life, sending a jet of compressed air toward the balloon. The force struck it head-on, causing it to convulse violently. The water within churned like a storm-tossed sea, its surface bulging and distorting under the pressure. The balloon trembled, its movements erratic, before finally bursting with a resounding boom. A tidal wave of water cascaded across the field, drenching everything in its path. Sam and Riley lay sprawled on the ground, soaked but alive. The Seek Chase theme faded into silence, replaced by the sound of dripping water and the distant cheers of the crowd. Sam grinned, wiping water from his face. "Told you it'd work." Riley glared at him, her hair plastered to her forehead. "Next time, we're sticking to normal balloons?" As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, the remnants of the balloon shimmered like glass shards in the grass. The crowd began to disperse, their excitement giving way to exhaustion. In the distance, the Seek Chase theme started up again, faint but unmistakable. Sam?" Riley said, her voice tinged with dread. Sam followed her gaze. Far across the field, another balloon was forming, this one even larger than the first. He sighed, shaking his head. "Guess history isn't done with us yet." And with that, the chase began anew.